How did a soft, wet fiber begin to hold human thoughts for thousands of years? If you are listening at night, say where you are and what time it is. Welcome to Dreamy Old Stories, where slow and gentle tales from history are told in a calm way that helps the mind settle and rest. The night is quiet and the world feels unhurried. Perhaps you are already lying down, or perhaps you are just beginning to relax. There is no need to move quickly now. The mind can drift gently backward to a time when mornings arrived without alarm clocks, and work began with the slow rise of the sun. Imagine a small settlement beside a river long ago. The air is cool and a thin mist rests above the water. Nothing dramatic happens. A few figures walk quietly along the bank, and their steps press softly into damp earth. The river moves at its steady pace, not fast and not slow, simply continuing as it always has. In this place writing exists, but it is not common. Words are valuable and the surfaces that hold them are rare. Some messages are carved into stone, others are brushed onto silk. Some are pressed into clay with careful hands. Each method carries its own weight and patience. Somewhere in this quiet settlement, people begin shaping something lighter and thinner. Something that will one day carry thoughts across great distances. They do not think of it in such a large way. They are working with simple materials in front of them. In ancient China, during the early centuries of the first millennium, worn cloth is gathered. Old fishing nets, frayed garments, pieces of hemp, nothing that will be missed. The materials are humble and soft from use. They already carry the marks of time and hands. The cloth is cut into small pieces and placed in water. It remains there for days and sometimes longer. The water grows cloudy as fibers loosen. If someone stands nearby, only faint movement can be heard inside a wooden vat. There is no hurry. The process depends on waiting. Later, the soaked cloth is lifted and beaten with wooden tools. The rhythm is steady and dull. The fibers break apart and slowly become pale pulp. It is slow work and arms grow tired. A pause comes, and then the motion begins again. The pulp is mixed with more water until it becomes thin and light. It does not yet resemble paper. It is simply fiber floating in liquid inside a wooden frame. A fine screen made of bamboo is dipped into the mixture. The person holding it moves carefully and lifts it with steady hands. Water drains through small spaces in the screen while the fibers remain behind and settle into a thin layer. Nothing dramatic marks this moment. Yet this thin layer resting on bamboo is the beginning of a sheet. The screen is placed aside and water continues to drip away. The fibers cling to each other as they dry. The damp sheet is pressed between flat surfaces, sometimes stones and sometimes boards. Pressure removes the remaining moisture and the sheet becomes smooth and light. When it is lifted free, it feels soft and almost weightless. It bends easily and waits for ink. No one inside this early workshop speaks of invention or change. They are making something useful and practical. Far away in ancient Egypt along the Nile, another method has been practiced for many years. The papyrus plant grows tall in the marsh. Workers cut the thick stalks and remove the outer layer. Inside, the pale center is sliced into thin strips. The strips are placed side by side and another layer is laid across them. Water from the river moistens the layers and natural sap binds them together. Stones press gently as the sun dries the surface. Papyrus is different from fiber pulp sheets. It is made from whole strips instead of separated fibers. Yet it also becomes a surface that carries ink and preserves thought. In different regions, similar work unfolds slowly through soaking, pressing, drying, and repetition. Hands learn the texture of plant and fiber. Movements become steady and familiar. If someone listens closely, small sounds might be imagined. Water dripping from a lifted screen, the scrape of a blade cutting papyrus, the soft rustle of drying sheets stacked together. None of it is loud, and none of it seeks attention. There is something ordinary about this work, and perhaps that is why it lasts. The people who shape these sheets return each day before the sun grows strong. They gather materials, soak them, press them, and wait. The steps repeat until the body remembers them without effort. Over time, small improvements appear. Fibers are refined and surfaces are polished with smooth stones. Sheets grow thinner and more even. Some carry slight color while others remain plain. The work continues, season after season. Now it is easy to picture a finished sheet resting quietly on a wooden table, blank and still, waiting for the first line of ink. Ink will come later. Words will come later. For now, there is only the calm presence of fiber shaped into form. Water becomes softness. Plant and cloth are transformed into something that can hold a thought. The river outside the ancient workshop continues to flow. The mist lifts slowly. As morning deepens, someone adjusts a stack of drying sheets so they do not curl. Another person checks the vat of pulp and stirs it gently. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is announced. The work continues quietly, and it is possible to remain with it, slowly observing how something simple is shaped by patient hands. Morning settles more fully over the riverside workshop. The mist has thinned and soft light rests on wooden beams, darkened by years of damp air. Inside, the vats remain still, holding their cloudy mixture of fiber and water. The surface trembles only slightly when someone walks nearby. A new bundle of worn cloth is brought inside. It is not new in any sense. It has already lived a life. Once it kept someone warm. Once it formed part of fishing nets lowered into the river. Now it is ready for a quieter purpose. The cloth is examined with calm hands, as if greeting something familiar before letting it change. The cloth is lowered into water again. The soaking feels almost ceremonial, though no one would call it that. It is simply the way things are done. Fibers must loosen and release the form they once held. Time helps them change. Days pass in the same slow rhythm. The sun rises and falls. The water in the vat becomes slightly sour and is replaced. Nothing dramatic marks these moments. They form the quiet background of daily life. A dog wanders through the courtyard. A child watches for a moment, then runs toward the river. When the cloth is ready, it is lifted and placed upon a flat stone. The wooden mallets begin their steady rhythm once more. The sound is calm and repetitive. Thud, thud, thud. Each strike separates the fibers further. Threads that once clung together loosen and spread. The material grows softer and less defined, like a pale cloud resting on the ground. The worker pauses sometimes and wipes sweat from the forehead. There is no urgency. The day is long and the task will finish in its own time. If one batch is imperfect, another can be made later. At this point in history, paper is valued but never rushed. When the beating ends, the softened fibers return to water. They spread slowly, like milk mixing into tea. The mixture must be stirred with care. Too much movement causes clumping. Too little allows sinking. Balance is learned through habit and observation, not written instruction. A wooden frame with a fine screen is prepared again. The bamboo surface is smooth from use and worn pale by time. It is dipped beneath the pulp and lifted slowly. The wrist tilts slightly so excess water drains away. A thin shimmer falls back into the vat. What remains on the screen appears fragile. It could tear with careless touch. The fibers lie scattered yet close enough to hold together. Quietly and almost invisibly they begin to connect. No thread is seen binding them. They simply settle into place. The thin sheet is laid upon a flat surface to dry. Sometimes it is transferred onto cloth or felt and layered with other sheets. The stack grows slowly, one thin sheet above another, each separated by fabric so they do not stick. A board is placed on top and stones are added for weight. The pressing remains slow and silent. Water seeps out gradually and is absorbed by the cloth below. Hours pass before the stones are removed. When they are lifted, the sheets feel changed, less like wet fiber and more like something whole. Each sheet is lifted gently and placed against a wall or laid on a smooth surface to finish. Drying. Air does most of the work now. A soft breeze enters through an open doorway and moves across the damp sheets. Fibers tighten slowly as moisture fades. The change is quiet but steady. Sometimes small imperfections appear. A thicker edge. A tiny tear. These are not treated as failures. They are part of the craft. The sheet can still be used, or it can be broken apart and returned to the vat to begin again. Nothing is wasted. Far away along the Nile, papyrus sheets dry under warm sunlight. Thin strips of plant pith flatten as they dry. Workers smooth the surfaced with rounded stones until it feels soft and even. Faint plant lines remain visible, running lengthwise and crosswise like a quiet pattern. Merchants carry stacks of papyrus across dusty roads. Scribes sit quietly with red pens and unroll long scrolls with care. The material bends, but does not fold easily. It prefers to be rolled rather than stacked. In the Chinese workshop, the new fiber sheets are trimmed along the edges. A sharp blade moves through with a soft whispering sound. Thin curls fall aside. Some scraps are saved and returned to the pulp. Even small pieces have purpose. As years pass, new materials are added. Mulberry bark, hemp fibers, pieces of old rope. Each creates a slightly different texture. Some sheets become smoother, others become stronger. Knowledge grows quietly and moves from one pair of hands to another without written instruction. No loud announcement marks these changes. There is only observation. One person notices that a certain bark produces a finer sheet. Another tests different soaking times. The craft shifts slowly and gently. In the evening, after the sheets are stacked, the workshop grows still. The vats rest. The mallets lean against the wall. A faint scent of wet fiber remains in the air. If someone sits there at dusk, a calm sense of simple labor completed may be felt. There is no applause, no written praise for the papermaker. Yet their work will soon carry poems, letters, records, and quiet notes between people. For now, it is enough that the sheets exist, pale, light, and waiting. The river outside continues its steady movement beneath the fading sky. The workers return home, wash their hands, and share their evening meal. Tomorrow, the cycle begins again. Soaking, beating, lifting the screen. The same gestures repeated calmly. Over time, these repetitions spread beyond the village, carried through trade routes and quiet conversation. For now, the workshop rests. Fresh sheets lean against the wall, drying fully in soft, fading light. They do not yet know the words they will hold. They remain quiet and complete in stillness. Night returns slowly, without notice. The last warmth fades from the walls and the air cools again. The dried sheets rest pale and light in the soft glow of an oil lamp. Nothing about them appears loud or important. They exist quietly, as if they have always been present. One sheet is lifted toward the light. The surface is smooth, though not perfect. Fine fibers run together like faint threads of mist. When touched, gently it answers with a soft whisper, "This is enough." It does not need to be flawless. It only needs to hold. Nearby, another vat is prepared for the next day. Water is poured slowly, forming gentle ripples that fade quickly. Tomorrow it will soak, and the quiet cycle will begin again. There is comfort in knowing the work continues without hurry. In distant places, similar scenes unfold in their own calm way. In small towns and along quiet rivers, people shape fibers into thin sheets, guided more by touch than by thought. No single workshop controls the craft. It moves gently from place to place, carried by memory and habit. Sometimes travelers bring news of other methods. A merchant may describe lighter sheets from another region. A wandering scholar may speak of smoother surfaces that accept ink more easily. These stories arrive softly like leaves drifting on still. Water, some are believed. Some are simply heard and set aside. Back in the workshop, finished sheets are stacked with care. The stack grows taller yet remains light enough to lift easily. A simple cord is wrapped around it, not tight, only enough to keep the sheets together. They wait quietly in silence. It is easy to imagine where the sheets might go. A scholar desk, a record keeper shelf, a poet's quiet corner. Yet the sheets do not hurry toward these futures. For now they remain resting where they are. The craft of papermaking continues to change in small and almost invisible ways. Some workers rinse the pulp more carefully and remove tiny impurities. Others press the sheets longer and learn that patience creates strength. None of these changes happen suddenly. They unfold slowly, like seasons turning without sound. There are damp days when the air is heavy and sheets take longer to dry. On those days, the workshop feels thick with moisture. Workers move quietly from sheet to sheet, turning some so air can reach both sides. A small fire may burn nearby, not to rush the process, only to keep the air from becoming too wet. There are also bright days when sunlight enters through the doorway in steady warmth. On those mornings, sheets dry faster and their surfaces tighten gently in the heat. Someone may take a smooth stone and polish a finished sheet using slow, circular motion. The stone moves softly and leaves behind a faint shine. Through repetition, the craft begins to feel like breathing, soaking, beating, lifting, pressing, drying. The steps repeat again and again. They do not change, yet they never seem tiring. The body remembers the rhythm even when the mind drifts toward thoughts of family, food, or the quiet passing of time. Across the sea, papyrus scrolls continue to be shaped along the Nile. The method is different, yet the purpose remains similar. Plant pressed into surface. fiber shaped into memory. Both become quiet bridges between thought and form. As centuries pass, paper made from pulp will slowly travel along trade routes, through mountains and across deserts. In this present moment, none of that movement feels urgent. The sheets resting inside the workshop are simply part of today. A soft breeze enters through a narrow window. It brushes across the stacked sheets and lifts one corner before letting it fall. The movement is small and almost unnoticed. Outside, the river follows its steady path beneath faint starlight. Inside, an oil lamp flickers gently. Shadows shift across wooden beams and clay walls. Tools remain where they were left. A mallet lies on its side. A screen leans upright with faint fibers still attached. A vat of water waits quietly for morning. No voices disturb the stillness. The workshop rests, holding within it the quiet. Knowledge that something soft and fragile can grow strong through time and care. If someone listens closely, a rhythm can be felt even in silence. The memory of water dripping, the echo of mallets striking fiber, the faint rustle of drying sheets. These sounds linger softly, like footsteps fading into night. The story continues not with an ending, but with steady persistence. The sheets remain ready for whatever words may rest upon them one day. The craft remains calm and constant, shaped by patient hands and unhurried days. The lamp grows dim. Night deepens. The paper rests pale and light in darkness, waiting without expectation as the slow work of history moves forward one quiet morning at a time. Morning comes again softly and without effort. The workshop wakes, as it always does, not with noise but with small familiar movements. A door slides open. Cool air moves inside. The faint scent of damp fiber remains unchanged from yesterday and many days before. Nothing feels new and nothing feels old. The rhythm simply continues. The stacked sheets from earlier days remain where they were placed, now fully dry and light. One sheet is lifted and turned slowly, then returned to the stack. The motion is quiet and almost absent. The sheet has no voice, yet it seems to speak through its texture and softness, through the faint memory of water that once held it together. Outside, the river moves in its patient way. A thin mist rests low above the surface and drifts slowly. Nearby, a wooden bucket touches water with a hollow sound and rises again, full and heavy. The work of the day begins in the same gentle pattern. Fresh fibers are prepared from the inner bark of mulberry branches. The bark has been stripped carefully, leaving long pale ribbons coiled like soft threads. They are placed into clear water and left to soak. Waiting remains part of the work. Nothing useful comes from rushing this step. As the bark softens, small bubbles rise and fade quietly. The fibers loosen and release their earlier shape. They do not resist. They simply change slowly and without effort. When soaking is complete, the bark is lifted and rinsed. Water flows across it in a thin stream, carrying away dust and tiny fragments. Fingers move along the fibers, feeling their softness and judging readiness by touch as much as sight. Hands often know what eyes do not see. Soon the steady rhythm of beating begins again. The softened bark is placed across a smooth stone and struck gently again and again until it separates into fine strands. The sound is dull and familiar. Thud, thud, thud. The morning passes in this quiet rhythm. No one speaks much. Words are not needed here. The work itself fills the silence. When the fibers have separated, they are placed back into water. The vat becomes cloudy again with drifting particles moving slowly when stirred. A wooden stick circles through the mixture, guiding fibers into suspension. The motion is calm and even like circles drawn across still water. Nearby, an older sheet of paper is examined. It has grown slightly yellow and its edges are soft. It has lived a small life, perhaps holding a short message or a simple brush mark. Now it may return to the pulp and begin again in new form. Nothing here is truly lost. The cycle allows return. The bamboo screen is prepared again. Its fine lines catch faint morning light and tiny fibers from earlier sheets still cling to its surface. It is dipped slowly into the vat, allowing pulp to settle evenly. The lift is steady and controlled without sudden movement. Water drains in thin streams back into the vat below. Fibers remain scattered yet connected, forming another delicate layer. This moment feels quiet and almost unseen, yet it remains the center of the craft. From drifting pulp to forming sheet, from water to surface, the new sheet is placed onto cloth and another cloth rests above it. Stacking continues, slowly layer upon layer. A flat board rests above and smooth stones are placed for weight. Pressing begins again slowly and patiently. Hours pass quietly. Outside, the sun rises higher and warms the air. Inside, water seeps slowly from the stack and is absorbed by cloth. Sheets grow thinner and firmer. The change happens without sound and without display. In other places across the world, other paper makers move through similar motions. Different plants and different waters, yet the same patience and quiet repetition. Knowledge travels slowly, carried by traders and travelers who notice small details and remember them. In some regions, paper remains rare and used only for special writing. In others, it becomes more common and begins to replace heavier materials. Here in this riverside workshop, the work remains simple and unchanged. The goal is balance. A well-made sheet, a ready surface. As midday approaches, the stones are lifted from the pressed stack. The top cloth is removed carefully. Beneath it, sheets lie smooth and pale, still slightly damp. One by one, they are lifted and placed against a flat wooden wall to dry. A faint breeze enters through the doorway and moves gently across damp surfaces. Fibers tighten as moisture fades. Sheets grow lighter and thin. Someone adjusts their position so they do not curl. The motion is small and practiced through years of repetition. No announcement marks completion. The work simply continues. The vat is checked. Fibers are stirred again. Another screen is dipped. Another layer forms. The morning passes not with urgency, but with steady calm. The craft moves forward, shaping soft fibers into lasting form, one quiet sheet at a time. Afternoon light falls gently across the workshop floor, long and soft, touching the edges of tools and the pale surfaces of drying sheets. Nothing changes. Quickly, the air feels warm and still, carrying the faint scent of wet fiber, wood, and water. The rhythm of the day continues without interruption, as it has for many seasons. The sheets placed along the wooden wall earlier begin to dry more fully. Their surfaces feel smoother and firmer, yet still delicate. One sheet is lifted slowly and turned toward the light. Tiny fiber patterns appear faint and subtle, like soft threads across a quiet sky. The sheet is returned gently to its place. There is no need for hurry. Near the vat, the pulp rests in silence until stirred again, when a wooden stick moves through. Gentle currents form and carry fibers in slow circles. Some rise and some sink, yet all remain part of the same quiet mixture. The worker watches calmly, sensing balance that cannot easily be explained, only felt. A new batch of fibers is prepared, this time mixed with fine strands of hemp. The texture feels slightly stronger and a little coarser. These differences are noticed but not judged. Each material has its own nature and the craft adjusts quietly around it. The bamboo screen is lifted again. Its frame, smooth from years of use, rests comfortably in steady hands. It lowers into the vat, disappears beneath the surface, then rises. Again, carrying another thin layer of drifting fiber. Water slips away, through woven lines and returns quietly below. The forming sheet trembles slightly for a moment and then grows still. Fibers settle together and connect without visible effort. It is a silent joining, slow and patient. The sheet is placed onto cloth, aligned carefully, then covered with another cloth above. Layering continues and a quiet stack grows, light despite its height. Outside the river reflects soft sunlight. A boat passes slowly and barely disturbs the surface. Far away a bird calls once, and then silence returns. These sounds do not interrupt the work. They exist beside it. The layered stack is pressed again beneath a wooden board and smooth stones. Pressure remains gentle but steady. Water seeps slowly and is absorbed by the cloth below. Time continues the work quietly as afternoon deepens. In another corner, an older craftsman smooths a finished sheet with a rounded stone. The movement is slow and circular, calm and steady. The stone glides across the surface and presses fibers flat, leaving a faint, soft shine. There is no rush. The hand moves with long memory. Nearby, a younger worker watches silently, learning through observation rather than words. The craft passes quietly from one generation to another, not written in instruction, but carried through habit and patience. Sometimes a sheet does not form evenly. A thin gap appears, or a corner tears slightly. These moments bring no frustration. The imperfect sheet returns to the vat and dissolves again into drifting fiber, ready to begin once more. The cycle accepts everything. As the sun lowers, the pressed stack is opened again. Cloth layers are lifted carefully, revealing sheets that are now thinner, smoother, and nearly complete. One by one they are placed along the wall, joining others. In silent rows, a faint breeze moves across them and continues their drying. Evening light softens. Shadows grow longer across the floor and stretch quietly between tools and walls. The vat grows still again and its cloudy surface barely moves. The mallets rest where they were placed, silent after their steady work. In distant lands, papermaking continues. In other quiet workshops. Along desert roads, papyrus scrolls are carried in bundles, their plant fibers pressed smooth under sun and stone. In mountain monasteries, early paper sheets are brushed with careful characters, ink moving softly across pale surfaces. Each place moves in its own calm rhythm. Yet all are connected by the simple act of shaping fiber into memory. Back in the riverside, workshop finished, sheets are gathered into a neat stack. A cord is wrapped loosely around them, holding them together without pressure. They feel light and almost fragile, yet they carry quiet strength formed through soaking, beating, pressing, and drying. Evening approaches without announcement. The air cools slightly. The last sheet of the day is lifted and placed beside the others. Tools remain ready, waiting for tomorrow when the same motions will begin again. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing feels complete. The craft continues steady and calm, moving gently forward through time. Evening settles slowly, as if it has nowhere else to be. The last warmth of sunlight fades from the workshop walls, leaving cooler air behind. The sheets that were drying hang in neat rows, their pale surfaces barely visible in fading light. Nothing moves quickly. Nothing needs to. A small oil lamp is lit and its flame remains low and steady. The glow touches the edges of stacked paper and reveals thin layers like faint lines along a horizon. One bundle is lifted and placed on a wooden shelf, high enough to remain dry and low enough to reach easily. The motion is simple and automatic. Outside, the river darkens and reflects the evening sky. The sound of water remains constant, neither louder nor softer than before. It does not notice the work, yet it has always been part of it. Water that once flowed in the river now rests within the fibers of finished sheets, changed but still. Quietly present. Inside the workshop, the vat is covered with a wooden lid. The pulp beneath rests through the night. Fibers drift slowly downward in still water and settle softly at the bottom. Tomorrow they will be stirred again and lifted toward. Light. Tools are arranged without ceremony. A screen is rinsed gently to remove clinging strands and leaned against the wall to dry. A mallet is wiped with a damp cloth and placed beside the stone where it will wait. These small gestures close the day without words. There is no sense of ending, only pause. The craft does not stop at night. It simply grows quieter. In another place, a scribe unrolls papyrus by lamplight. The surface remains steady beneath the brush, and lines of ink move calmly across pale fibers. When writing is complete, the scroll is rolled and tied with cord, then placed among others. Plant fibers, once rooted in soil, now carry thought through. Time. In regions where pulp paper slowly spreads, finished sheets travel along trade paths beside spices and silk. Paper moves quietly and without display, yet it stands ready to hold records, letters, poems, and drawings. Back in the riverside workshop, a single sheet remains on the table. It lies flat and untouched. The oil lamp flickers softly and casts a shadow along its edge. The surface appears empty yet holds quiet possibility. It has been soaked, beaten, lifted, pressed, and dried. It has endured water, weight, and time. Now it simply rests. Night deepens and air grows cooler. Outside, faint insect sounds begin, steady and low. The workshop remains still and holds the memory of the day within its wooden walls. If someone entered now, only simple objects would be seen. A shelf of pale sheets, a covered vat, tools resting quietly. Nothing reveals how many small motions shaped these materials. Nothing shows how many hands learned this slow craft across generations. Yet the process continues, even in rest. Fibers inside each sheet settle more firmly into place. The faint scent of plant and water lingers in the air. Quiet holds everything together. Beyond this village, knowledge of paper will travel outward. It will cross deserts, mountains, and seas, and adapt slowly to new climates and materials. In some places, rags will replace bark. In others, new plants will be tested. The craft will change, but never in haste. Always through observation, always through patience. For now, we remain in this quiet moment. The lamp burns lower and shadows stretch along the floor. The river continues its calm movement outside, beneath a sky filled with quiet stars. The sheet on the table appears almost luminous in dim light. It asks for nothing. It waits without urgency. Soon it may carry ink, or it may remain blank a little longer. There is no pressure in its waiting. The flame flickers once and then steadies again. The workshop rests fully in darkness and soft air. The craft of shaping fiber into surface pauses until morning, when hands return to water and pulp, to lifting and pressing, to the steady rhythm that turns simple materials into something able to hold memory. Night passes gently over quiet stacks of paper, over tools and vat and river beyond, while the slow work of history continues in its patient way, one calm day following another. Morning returns with quiet certainty, as if it never left. A faint grey light gathers along the edge of the sky and slowly touches the river, the trees, and the wooden walls of the workshop. Nothing moves suddenly. The world wakes in small, gentle breaths. Inside, the air is cool and still. Stacks of finished sheets remain where they were placed, pale and silent, resting without expectation. The oil lamp from the night before is dark now, leaving only a faint scent of smoke. A door opens softly and the day begins again. Hands move toward the vat. The wooden lid is lifted and the water beneath appears calm and smooth. Fibers that settled during the night rest quietly at the bottom. A long wooden stick dips into the vat and begins to stir. Slowly and gently the fibers rise and drift again, spreading through the water like thin clouds in a pale sky. There is comfort in repetition. The same motion, the same quiet beginning. Today, a different bundle of material waits nearby. It is made from old hemp ropes softened by time and use. The rope has been untwisted into long strands, and its coarse texture is beginning to loosen. It is placed into water to soak and begins its slow change into something softer. As the fibers absorb water, they relax and separate, losing their earlier firmness. Nothing happens quickly. The change is gradual and steady. A faint ripple crosses the surface of the vat and fades. Outside, the river reflects pale morning light. A thin mist drifts above it without direction. In the distance, a bird crosses the bird. Sky. These small movements do not disturb the calm. They belong to it. Inside, the soaked hemp is lifted and placed on a flat stone. The steady rhythm of beating begins again. The mallet rises and falls in slow, even motion. Thud, thud. The sound is simple and steady, marking time. With each strike, the fibers loosen further and break into finer strands. The rope that once carried weight softens into pale drifting fiber. The worker pauses at times, adjusts the material, and continues. The rhythm returns icily. As beating continues, morning grows brighter. Light enters through the doorway and rests on the stone floor and wooden beams. Dust moves slowly in the quiet air. When the fibers are soft enough, they are gathered and returned to water. The vat becomes cloudy again. A wooden stick moves through the mixture and guides the fibers into even suspension. The motion is slow and practiced through years of repetition. Nearby, a finished sheet from an earlier day is examined. Its surface is smooth and its edges slightly soft. A finger moves lightly across it, feeling the faint texture of joined fibers. The sheet is returned to the stack where it rests among the others. The bamboo screen is prepared again. Its woven surface catches light faintly as it lowers into the vat. Beneath the surface, drifting fibers settle into a thin, even layer. The screen is lifted slowly and water slips away in soft streams. What remains is fragile and light. Fibers lie, scattered yet connected, forming the start of another sheet. The screen trembles slightly and then grows still. The sheet is transferred onto cloth and covered gently with another cloth above. Layering continues. Thin sheet upon thin sheet, each separated carefully, building a quiet stack. A wooden board is placed on top, and smooth stones follow. Pressing begins again, steady and patient. Hours pass quietly. Outside, the sun climbs higher and warms the air. Inside, water seeps from the pressed stack and is absorbed by cloth. Sheets grow thinner and stronger. In distant lands, similar motions unfold. In quiet workshops, along the Nile, papyrus strips are pressed beneath sunlight. In mountain valleys, early sheets are dried against smooth walls. Materials differ, yet rhythm remains the same. Soaking, beating, lifting, pressing, drying, back. In the riverside workshop, the pressed stack is opened. Cloth layers are peeled back gently and damp sheets appear cool and soft. One by one they are lifted and placed along the wooden wall where a faint breeze moves across them. Fibers tighten slowly as they dry and draw. Closer together, sheets grow, lighter and smoother with time. Edges are adjusted so they do not curl. The motion is small and quiet. No announcement marks each finished sheet. Work continues calmly. The vat is stirred again. The screen dips once more. Another layer forms. Morning moves forward, steady and calm, shaping simple fibers into lasting form, one quiet sheet at a time. Afternoon arrives without urgency and settles over the workshop and the river beyond. Light grows warmer and leans through. The doorway across the wooden floor. Rows of drying sheets glow faintly in the gentle warmth, their pale surfaces blending with still air. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels delayed. The work continues in steady rhythm. The sheets placed along the wall earlier in the day begin to change again. Their damp softness fades and a gentle firmness replaces it. One sheet is lifted carefully, turned toward the light, then placed back in line with the others. The motion is slow and practiced. Each sheet appears similar to the last, yet none are exactly the same. Near the vat, the cloudy mixture rests until stirred again. A wooden stick moves through the water and draws slow circles, sending fibers drifting evenly through the liquid. The motion is calm and deliberate. Fibers follow without resistance and spread gently like mist across a quiet field. A small bundle of mulberry bark waits nearby and soaks in clear water. Fibers inside the bark loosen slowly and release their earlier form. Time moves quietly here, measured not by clocks but by texture and readiness. When the bark is prepared, it is lifted and placed upon a flat stone. The mallet rises and falls again in a steady rhythm. Thud, thud, thud. The sound is dull and even and echoes softly against wooden walls. Fibers separate gradually and become fine and pale, moving closer to the form they will soon take. The worker pauses at times, not from urgency but from natural rhythm. A breath, a small adjustment. Then motion begins again, steady as before. The workshop holds this rhythm like a quiet heartbeat. Once softened, the fibers return to the vat. Water clouds, again with drifting strands. The wooden stick stirs slowly and guides the mixture into balance. No written instruction guides this step. Knowledge lives in the hands and in a careful sense of resistance and flow. Nearby, an older sheet of paper is polished. A rounded stone moves across its surface in slow, circular motion. The faint sound of stone against fiber is soft, like a whisper. With each pass, the sheet grows smoother and a gentle shine appears in warm light. The bamboo screen is lifted again. Its woven surface disappears beneath the pulp and rises carrying a thin layer of suspended fiber. Water drains quietly through small spaces and returns to the vat. Fibers remain behind, scattered yet connected, and form the fragile beginning of another sheet. The screen trembles slightly and then becomes still. The sheet is transferred carefully onto cloth and aligned with practiced hands. Another cloth is placed above and layering continues. Thin sheet upon thin sheet building a quiet stack. Outside the river moves without change. A faint breeze crosses its surface and creates soft ripples that fade quickly. Far away a cart moves along a distant path and its sound blends into the walk. Calm. Inside, the layered stack is pressed again beneath a wooden board and smooth stones. Pressure remains steady and gentle. Water begins its slow movement outward and is absorbed by cloth below. Time carries transformation forward. As afternoon deepens, the pre-stack is opened again. Cloth layers are lifted softly and sheets appear thinner and firmer. One by one they are placed along the wall to dry completely. Air moving through the workshop is gentle yet enough to remove the last traces of moisture. Fibers tighten slowly and draw closer together, forming a surface both delicate and strong. A worker trims the edges of a finished sheet. The blade moves quietly and produces a faint whisper as thin curls fall away. Trimmings are gathered carefully and saved to return to the vat. The cycle continues without waste. In distant lands, papermaking follows its own calm path. Papyrus strips dry beneath sunlight along the Nile. Early pulp sheets rest in quiet monasteries waiting for ink and brush. Knowledge spreads gently through observation and steady repetition. Back in the workshop, the last sheet of this batch is lifted and placed with the others. The vat grows still again, and its cloudy surface becomes calm. Tools rest where they were. Placed, light begins to soften toward evening. Nothing announces the completion of the day work. The craft continues, gently shaping fiber into form and following the same quiet rhythm that has carried it through many days before, and will carry it forward through many more. Evening returns softly, without sound or sudden change. Warm afternoon. Light fades into gentle dimness and settles across the workshop and the quiet river beyond. Sheets that were drying along the wall now rest almost fully formed, their pale surfaces calm in cooling air. Final movements of the day are small and careful. One sheet is lifted slowly, held briefly, then placed into a growing stack. Edges align neatly, guided by practiced hands that move without thought. The stack remains light yet holds the weight of time, water, and patience. A soft breeze enters through the open doorway and brushes across drying sheets. Some corners lift slightly, then settle again. Fibers inside each sheet continue tightening as the last moisture fades. The change is subtle and nearly invisible, yet complete. Nearby, the vat is stirred once more before being covered for night. The cloudy water moves gently and then becomes still. Fibers drift slowly downward and rest until morning. A wooden lid is placed over the vat, closing the day quietly. Tools are cleaned with simple, familiar motion. A bamboo screen is rinsed carefully and cleared of remaining fibers. A mallet is wiped and placed beside the stone. A cloth damp with water is hung to dry. Nothing is rushed and nothing is delayed. Each movement follows the calm rhythm that has guided the craft. Across generations, outside the river darkens beneath the evening sky. Its surface reflects faint stars and trembles softly in the slow current. The sound of water remains steady and unchanged. Somewhere beyond the trees, a distant voice calls briefly and fades into silence. Inside the workshop, a single oil lamp is lit. Its glow is warm and gentle and casts soft shadows along wooden walls. Stacks of finished sheets rest on a shelf, pale and quiet, waiting without urgency. One sheet lies alone on the table, and its smooth surface catches faint light. It has been soaked, beaten, lifted, pressed, and dried. It has endured slow transformation. Now it rests, ready for whatever may come, or perhaps for nothing at all. There is no demand in its stillness. In distant regions, similar evenings unfold. Along the Nile, papyrus scrolls are stacked carefully there. Plant fibers pressed smooth beneath stone and sun. In quiet valleys, early pulp sheets dry against wooden walls, waiting for ink. Across lands and cultures, the craft continues steady and patient. Knowledge moves, gently carried by travelers, monks, merchants, and craftsmen who observe small details and remember them. New fibers are tried and new methods are tested, yet nothing changes quickly. Every improvement grows slowly through observation and repetition. Back in the riverside workshop, the lamp flickers softly. Shadows shift across tools and walls. The faint scent of wet fiber and wood lingers in the air. The room feels calm and still. The sheet on the table remains untouched. Its surface appears empty, yet holds quiet possibility. Soon it may carry written thought or simple record or message, or it may remain blank longer. There is no urgency in its waiting. Night deepens slowly. Outside, insects begin a soft, steady sound. The river continues its endless movement and reflects faint starlight. Inside the workshop rests, holding memory of the day-quiet rhythm. If someone listens closely, faint echoes of the craft remain. The dull sound of mallets striking fiber. The quiet drip of water from lifted screens. The soft rustle of drying sheets. These sounds fade slowly into silence, leaving only calm. The story moves forward not with an ending, but with gentle continuation. Stacks of paper rest quietly in dim light. Tools wait patiently. The vat sleeps beneath its wooden lid. Morning will come again, bringing the same slow rhythm of soaking, beating, lifting, pressing, and drying. The craft will continue shaping simple fibers into something that can hold memory. One quiet sheet at a time, as the calm flow of history moves softly onward. Another morning unfolds, pale and unhurried. Light gathers slowly along the riverbank and touches the tops of reeds and the wooden edges of the workshop. Nothing begins suddenly. The air feels cool and steady, as if it has been waiting quietly. For this moment, inside the shelves hold patient stacks of finished sheets. They rest in even bundles, light but firm, with edges aligned carefully. A thin layer of dust has settled overnight on the wooden table and becomes visible when early sunlight reaches it. A hand brushes the surface gently and clears space for the work of the day. The vat is uncovered again. The surface of the water lies still and reflects a faint piece of sky from the doorway. Fibers that settled during the night rest quietly at the bottom in a pale layer. A wooden stick dips into the vat and begins its slow turning. The water moves slowly at first, then more freely, and lifts the fibers back into suspension. There is something familiar in this moment. The beginning feels the same as before, yet never feels repetitive. The movement of water, the slow rising of fiber, the quiet stirring. These simple actions carry calm consistency. Outside, a cart moves slowly past the edge of the village, and its wheels press softly into the earth. The sound is distant and gentle. A few voices pass through the morning air and fade again. Nothing disturbs the steady rhythm inside the workshop. Today, a bundle of linen rags has arrived from nearby homes. The cloth is worn thin from years of use and softened by washing and time. Each piece holds a quiet memory of earlier use, though no one pauses to consider it. The rags are cut into small strips and placed into water where they begin their slow change into fiber. Soaking requires patience, and many hours may pass before the cloth loosens fully. During this waiting, other small tasks continue. A finished stack is wrapped in clean cloth and tied loosely with cord, ready for trade. Another bundle is examined, and each sheet checked for smoothness and strength. When the soaked linen is ready, it is lifted and placed on a flat stone. The mallet begins its steady motion again. The sound fills the workshop in a calm rhythm, not loud and not sharp, only steady dot. With each strike, threads separate further and unravel into soft strands. The material becomes less like cloth and more like pale drifting fiber. Motion continues without hurry. A brief pause, and then the rhythm returns. Fibers once woven into fabric now drift apart quietly. They no longer resemble their former form. They become something new without any sudden change. When softened, the linen fibers return to water. The vat becomes cloudy again, filled with suspended strands. The wooden stick circles slowly and spreads the fibers evenly. Balance must be maintained. Too much motion disturbs suspension. Too little allows settling. The bamboo screen waits nearby, and its woven surface glistens faintly in the light. It lowers gently into the vat and disappears beneath the cloudy water. When lifted again, it carries another fragile layer of fiber. Water drains in thin streams and returns quietly to the vat. The forming sheet trembles slightly and then grows still. Fibers settle and connect without effort. The sheet is transferred onto cloth and aligned carefully. Another cloth rests above, and layering continues. Sheet upon sheet builds into a quiet stack. A board rests on top, and smooth stones are placed gently to apply weight. Pressing begins again, slow and constant. As morning deepens, water seeps gradually from the layered stack and is absorbed by cloth beneath. Sheets become thinner and more defined. The change happens silently. Outside, sunlight spreads across the river and the mist has lifted. Water flows gently downstream. A fisherman casts a line without hurry and watches patiently inside the pressed stack is opened. Cloth layers are lifted softly and damp sheets appear cool to the touch. One by one, they are placed against the wooden wall to dry. A faint breeze enters through the doorway and moves across them. Fibers tighten as they dry and draw closer together. Someone adjusts a corner so it will not curl. The movement is small and precise. No announcement marks the making of these sheets. The work continues quietly as it has for many years, soaking, beating, lifting, pressing, drying. The rhythm continues shaping simple materials into a surface that can hold thought and memory. Morning passes again in steady calm, and each motion blends into the next as the craft continues gently onward. Afternoon settles softly over the workshop and brings gentle warmth that rests on wood, stone, and drying sheets. Light has changed and now stretches across the floor in long, quiet shapes. Nothing feels hurried and nothing feels delayed. The work continues as always. The sheets placed along the wall earlier are no longer damp. Their surfaces have grown smoother and firmer, yet remain light. One is lifted carefully and held toward the light, then returned to its place. The motion is slow and familiar. Hands know the movement without thought. Near the vat, the cloudy mixture rests until stirred again. A wooden stick moves through it in slow, steady circles and guides fibers into even suspension. The water responds gently and forms faint currents that carry fibers without resistance. The balance feels quiet and exact, shaped by habit rather than instruction. A new bundle of fibers waits nearby, this time made from inner tree bark gathered from young branches. The bark has softened in water and its layers loosen slowly. When lifted, it bends easily and is no longer stiff. It is placed upon a flat stone, and the steady rhythm of beating begins again. The mallet rises and falls in even motion. Thud, thud, thud. The sound is dull and familiar and echoes softly within wooden walls. With each strike, fibers separate further and drift toward pale softness needed for forming sheets. The rhythm continues without urgency. At times, the worker pauses, not from fatigue but from natural pacing. A small adjustment, a breath, then steady motion returns. The craft unfolds in a quiet pattern, unchanging yet never tiring. When fibers are softened enough, they return to the vat. The water clouds again and fills with drifting strands. The wooden stick stirs slowly and guides the mixture toward balance. No written rules guide this step. Hands sense when fibers move freely and when suspension is even. Nearby, a finished sheet is polished again. A rounded stone glides across its surface in slow circular motion. The faint sound is soft like wind over dry leaves. The sheet grows smoother and its surface reflects a gentle sheen in afternoon light. The bamboo screen is lifted again. It lowers into the vat and disappears beneath the cloudy surface, then rises slowly, carrying another thin layer of fiber. Water drains quietly back into the vat and leaves behind a fragile forming sheet. For a brief moment, the sheet trembles and then becomes still. Fibers settle into one another and link softly, forming a surface both delicate and whole. The screen tilts carefully and the sheet is transferred onto cloth. Another cloth covers it, in layering continues. The stack grows slowly, sheet upon sheet, separated gently and aligned with practiced care. A wooden board is placed on top and smooth stones follow. Pressing begins again, steady and patient. Water seeps outward and is absorbed by cloth below, leaving sheets thinner and stronger. Outside, the river reflects soft afternoon light. A faint breeze passes across its surface and creates small ripples that fade quickly. In the distance, the quiet sound of footsteps moves along a dusty path and fades again. Inside, the press stack is opened again. Cloth layers peel back softly and reveal sheets that are nearly complete. One by one, they are placed along the wooden wall. Air moving through the doorway is gentle and carries away the last traces of moisture. Fibers tighten slowly and draw closer, together forming a surface smooth and light. Someone trims the edges of a finished sheet and the blade whispers softly as thin curls fall away. The trimmings are gathered carefully and saved to return to the vat, continuing the quiet cycle. In distant lands, papermaking follows its own calm rhythm. Papyrus strips dry beneath warm sunlight along the Nile. Early pulp sheets rest in shaded rooms, waiting for ink and brush. Knowledge spreads gently through observation, repetition, and time. Back in the workshop, the last sheet of this batch is lifted and placed with the others. The vat grows still again, and its cloudy surface becomes calm and quiet. Tools rest where they were placed. Afternoon light begins to soften toward evening. Nothing announces the progress of the craft. It continues gently and shapes fiber into form, moving forward through the same quiet rhythm that has guided it for generations. Steady and unhurried. Evening drifts in once more, slow and quiet, as if the day is folding itself away. The warm glow of afternoon fades into softer, cooler light that settles across the workshop walls. Rows of drying sheets stand pale and still, their surfaces smooth and their edges even. Nothing asks for attention, and nothing needs to change quickly. One sheet is lifted from the wall and placed carefully onto the wooden table. Its surface feels firm now, no longer damp and no longer fragile. A hand moves lightly across it and senses the faint texture of fibers joined through patience and time. The sheet answers only with silence. Nearby, the vat rests uncovered for a moment longer. The cloudy water inside remains still and holds faint traces of drifting fiber. A wooden stick dips slowly and stirs once and then again before the lid is placed gently over the top. The movement of the day settles into rest. Tools are cleaned with quiet, familiar gestures. The bamboo screen is rinsed softly and clears away the last fibers clinging to its woven surface. A cloth heavy with water is wrung gently and hung to dry. The mallet is wiped and placed beside the stone where it will wait for morning. Nothing is rushed and nothing is delayed. Outside, the river deepens into shadow. The sky reflects faint fading light and slowly darkens. The air feels cooler and carries the scent of water and earth. Somewhere beyond the trees, a distant sound reaches briefly and fades into stillness. Inside the workshop, an oil lamp is lit. Its small flame flickers gently and casts soft shadows across wooden beams. Stacks of finished sheets rest on their shelf, quiet and pale in dim light. One bundle is lifted and tied loosely with cord and placed carefully among the others. These sheets have followed a quiet path, soaked in water, softened through beating, lifted from drifting pulp, pressed beneath stone and wood, dried by air and time. Their change is complete, yet without noise or announcement. In distant regions, papyrus scrolls are stacked in careful bundles beneath evening light. Their plant fibers hold faint lines from pressing and smoothing. Elsewhere, pulp paper sheets dry against shaded walls and wait for ink and brush. Across lands and waters, the craft continues steady and calm. Knowledge moves gently between these places, carried by travelers, traders, and craftsmen who observe small details and remember them. New fibers are tried and new methods slowly appear. Nothing changes suddenly. Every improvement grows from repetition, observation, and time. Back in the riverside workshop, The lamp glows softly. Shadows move slowly across tools and walls. The faint scent of wet fiber and wood remains in the air. The room feels still and quiet. A single sheet lies on the table untouched. Its surface is smooth and pale, yet full of quiet possibility. Soon it may hold a written thought or a careful mark or memory, or it may remain blank and rest longer in silence. There is no urgency in its waiting. Night deepens gradually. Outside the river continues its endless movement and reflects faint starlight. The workshop rests fully and holds within it the memory of the slow rhythm of the day. If someone listens carefully, echoes of the craft remain. The soft fall of water from lifted screens, the dull rhythm of mallets striking fiber, the faint rustle of drying sheets. These sounds fade slowly into quiet night. The story moves forward, not toward an ending, but through gentle continuation. Stacks of paper remain still and ready. Tools wait patiently. The vat sleeps beneath its wooden lid. Morning will return again and bring the same steady rhythm of soaking, softening, lifting, pressing, and drying. The craft will continue shaping simple fibers into a surface able to carry memory and thought, one quiet sheet at a time, as the calm flow of history moves softly onward. Morning arrives again, quiet and pale, as if the world begins slowly. The sky holds soft grey light, and the river moves in its steady, familiar way. Nothing feels new and nothing feels old. The rhythm continues unchanged and calm. Inside the workshop, the air is cool. The faint scent of damp fiber lingers against wooden beams and the stone floor. Shelves hold quiet stacks of finished sheets, pale and light, each shaped through patience and time. A thin beam of sunlight enters through the doorway and touches the edge of the table, revealing the soft grain of wood. The vat is uncovered once more. The water inside appears still and smooth and reflects a faint piece of morning sky. Fibers that settled overnight rest quietly at the bottom. A wooden stick dips into the water and begins its slow turning. Fibers rise gently and spread through the water, forming a soft, cloudy suspension. The beginning of the day feels familiar. The motion of stirring, the faint sound of water moving, the quiet awakening of fiber. These small actions return again and again, steady and calm. Today, a bundle of worn fishing nets has been brought from the river edge. Fibers are rough and shaped by years of tension and water. Now they are ready to change. Nets are cut into smaller pieces and placed into clear water, where they begin their slow softening. As fibers absorb water, they loosen gradually and release their earlier form. Nothing happens quickly. The transformation is slow and patient. A faint ripple crosses the surface of the vat and fades. Outside, the morning grows brighter. Mist above the river lifts gently and reveals the smooth movement of water. A fisherman stands quietly along the bank and watches without hurry. The world feels calm and silent. Back inside, soaked fibers are lifted and placed upon a flat stone. The mallet begins its steady rhythm again. Thud, thud. The sound is dull and even and echoes softly against wooden walls. With each strike, fibers separate further and drift toward softness. The worker pauses at times and adjusts the material, then continues. The rhythm remains calm and steady and marks slow passing of time. Nets that once held weight now soften into pale strands ready for new form. When beating is complete, softened fibers return to water. The vat grows cloudy again. A wooden stick moves slowly through the mixture and guides fibers into even suspension. The motion is careful and shaped through repetition rather than instruction. Nearby, a finished sheet from an earlier day is lifted and examined. Its surface feels smooth and edges gently softened. A finger moves lightly across it and senses faint texture of joined fibers. The sheet returns to its stack and rests quietly among the others. The bamboo screen is prepared again. Its woven surface catches light faintly as it lowers into the cloudy vat. Beneath the surface, drifting fibers settle across it in a thin layer. The screen is lifted slowly and water slips away in soft streams. What remains is fragile and light. Fibers lie scattered yet connected and form the beginning of another sheet. The screen trembles slightly and then becomes still. The sheet is transferred onto cloth and aligned gently with layers below. Another cloth is placed above and layering continues. Sheet upon sheet builds into a quiet stack. A wooden board rests on top, followed by smooth stones. Pressing begins again, slow and constant. Water seeps gradually from the layered stack and is absorbed by cloth beneath. Outside, sunlight spreads across the river and warms the air. The world continues in calm, steady rhythm. Inside, sheets grow thinner and firmer, shaped by pressure and time. Soon the pressed stack will open again, and damp sheets will be placed along the wooden wall to dry. The cycle will continue unchanged, soaking, beating, lifting, pressing, drying, mourning. Moves forward in gentle calm as simple fibers once again begin their quiet change into something that can hold memory, thought, and time. The afternoon settles gently over the workshop, warm and quiet, like a long breath held without effort. Sunlight enters through the doorway in a soft, steady beam and rests on the wooden floor, then slowly climbs the wall where new sheets hang to dry. Their pale surfaces glow faintly, neither bright nor dull, simply present. Nothing feels hurried. The rhythm of the craft continues in its familiar, quiet way. The sheets placed earlier in the day begin to change again. Their damp softness fades, and gentle firmness replaces it. One sheet is lifted slowly and turned toward the light, then returned to its place. The motion is careful and calm, guided by hands that remember without thought. Near the vat, the cloudy mixture waits until stirred again. A wooden stick moves through the water in slow circles and guides fibers into even suspension. The water shifts quietly and forms soft currents that carry fibers without resistance. The balance feels right, though no words are spoken. A small bundle of mulberry bark has finished soaking. Fibers inside have loosened and are ready to be shaped. The bark is lifted and placed upon a flat stone, and the steady rhythm of beating begins again. The mallet rises and falls with slow certainty. Thud, thud, thud. The sound echoes softly and still air and marks time in its own quiet way. With each strike, fibers separate further and become softer and finer, more like drifting cloud than solid material. The worker pauses at times, not from urgency but from natural rhythm, then continues. Motion resumes steady and unchanged. When fibers are ready, they return to the vat. The water clouds again and fills with suspended strands. The wooden stick stirs slowly and spreads fibers evenly. The mixture moves gently and is never forced. Nearby, an older sheet is polished. A rounded stone glides across its surface in slow circles. The faint whisper of stone against fiber fills the quiet space. The sheet grows smoother and its surface gains a soft sheen in afternoon light. The bamboo screen is lifted again. It lowers into the vat and disappears beneath cloudy water, then rises slowly, carrying a thin, delicate layer of fiber. Water drains quietly through the woven surface and returns to the vat below. The forming sheet trembles briefly and then settles. The sheet is transferred onto cloth and aligned carefully with layers below. Another cloth is placed above and stacking continues. Thin sheet upon thin sheet builds into a quiet growing stack. A wooden board is placed on top and smooth stones follow. Pressing begins again, steady and patient. Time passes softly. Outside, the river reflects slow movement of afternoon light. A faint breeze crosses the water and forms small ripples that fade quickly. Far away, a quiet sound moves through the air and disappears. Inside, water seeps slowly from the pressed stack and is absorbed by cloth beneath. Sheets grow thinner and firmer. The transformation unfolds quietly, guided by time and gentle pressure. The stack is opened again. Cloth layers lift softly and reveal sheets that are nearly dry. One by one, they are placed along the wooden wall. A faint breeze through the doorway moves across them and removes the last traces of moisture. Fibers tighten slowly and draw closer together, forming a surface smooth and light. A worker trims the edge of a finished sheet, and the blade whispers softly as thin curls fall away. Trimmings are gathered carefully and saved to return to the vat and continue the cycle. In distant places, paper making follows its calm rhythm. Papyrus strips dry beneath warm sunlight. Early pulp sheets rest in shaded rooms and wait for ink and brush. Knowledge spreads gently through observation, repetition, and time. Back in the workshop, the last sheet of this batch is lifted and placed with the others. The vat grows still again. Tools rest where they were placed. Afternoon light softens slowly toward evening. Nothing announces the progress of the craft. It continues gently and shapes fiber into form, moving forward through the same steady rhythm that has guided it. Through many quiet days, evening returns quietly and settles over the workshop and the slow river beyond. Warm afternoon light fades into softer glow and touches wooden walls and pale rows of finished sheets. The air cools gently and carries a faint scent of fiber, water, and wood. Nothing moves quickly and nothing needs to. Sheets that were drying along the wall now feel fully formed. One is lifted slowly, its surface smooth and light, its edges soft yet firm. It is placed onto a growing stack and aligned carefully with the others. The motion is simple and practiced, guided by hands that have repeated it many times. Nearby, the vat is stirred one final time before rest. Cloudy water moves gently and then grows still again. Fibers drift slowly downward and settle into a quiet layer at the bottom. The wooden lid is placed over the vat and closes the day without ceremony. Tools are cleaned with small, familiar gestures. The bamboo screen is rinsed carefully and removes the last clinging strands. A cloth heavy with moisture is wrung and hung to dry. The mallet is wiped and set beside the stone where it will wait for morning. Nothing is rushed and nothing is delayed. Outside, the river darkens beneath the evening sky. Its surface reflects faint stars and trembles softly in slow current. A distant breeze moves through the trees and carries quiet sounds that rise and fade. Inside the workshop, an oil lamp is lit. Its flame glows gently and casts soft shadows along beams and walls. Stacks of finished sheets rest quietly on a shelf, pale and still. One bundle is lifted and wrapped loosely with cord and placed among the others. Safe and dry. These sheets have followed a quiet path, soaked in water, softened through beating, lifted from drifting pulp. pressed beneath wood and stone, dried by air and time. Their change holds no noise and no sudden motion, only patience. In distant regions, similar evenings unfold. Along the Nile, papyrus scrolls are stacked carefully, and their surfaces are smoothed by stone and sunlight. In quiet valleys, early pulp sheets rest against wooden walls and wait for brush and ink. Across lands and waters, the craft continues steady and calm. Knowledge moves gently between these places, carried by travelers and craftsmen who observe small details and remember them. New fibers are tried and new methods slowly appear. Nothing changes suddenly. Every improvement grows from repetition, careful watching, and time. Back in the riverside workshop, the lamp flickers softly. Shadows move slowly across tools and walls. The faint scent of fiber lingers in still air. The room feels quiet and calm. A single sheet lies on the table untouched. Its surface is smooth and pale, empty yet full of quiet possibility. Soon it may carry a written mark or memory or thought, or it may remain blank a little longer. There is no urgency in its waiting. Night deepens slowly. Outside, insects begin a soft, steady sound. The river continues its endless movement and reflects faint starlight. Inside, the workshop rests fully and holds within it the memory of the steady rhythm of the day. If someone listens closely, faint echoes remain. The dull rhythm of mallets striking softened fiber, the soft drip of water from lifted screens, the gentle rustle of drying sheets. These sounds fade slowly into silence. The story continues, not toward an ending, but through gentle persistence. Stacks of paper remain still and ready. Tools wait patiently. The vat sleeps beneath its wooden lid. Morning will return again and bring the same slow rhythm of soaking, softening, lifting, pressing, and drying. The craft will continue shaping simple fibers into a surface that can hold memory and time, one quiet sheet at a time, as the calm flow of history moves softly onward.